Welcome everyone. I'm Benjamin Stobart, the Regional Business Solutions Director for Asia Pacific and Market Director for Hong Kong at Collinson Group, who are a global leader in loyalty and benefits. Firstly, thank you very much for tuning in. I know there are a lot of really good speakers here speaking today. We've got about 20 minutes. I'll be taking you through our view of the world currently, and again, a little bit of context for that. And hopefully it will spark maybe some inspiration, but probably more of a questioning for you to review where you are and see if some of the things that we're suggesting today could be taken into your everyday. So hopefully you'll find it some benefits, and thanks for staying with me. So the title of this talk is Why Those Who Dare Today Will Win Tomorrow. And again, the reason for the title is very much about trying to raise awareness of action that is needed today. What we've seen in the pandemic is a large amount of people planning and putting off, but there are some really key actions that you can apply now. COVID-19, look, it's forcing us out of our comfort zones, personally and professionally. The way customers conduct themselves, interact with us as brands, while always changing and constantly evolving, has been pretty much accelerated by the pandemic. This means financial services institutions need to evolve and respond to this acceleration, or risk being left behind by the raft of very new, very innovative competitors that I'd say are heading our way or have already got here. So we had a little quote, and again, I was desperate to try and not find a Winston Churchill quote, but unfortunately it was the only one that I could find that just was so perfect what I was trying to say here. So when we reflect on the current challenges of the world, the quote here did spring to mind. Yes, it's from another period, and yes, commonly through this pandemic is very much referenced as a time that the whole world was going through the same experience in one part. But in history, where humanity collectively faced a life-changing global challenge, they had to find a way through this. And to endure, overcome, and ultimately thrive requires a fuller understanding of your competition, a wider knowledge of the landscape, and understanding and remaining ahead of the game. When it comes to new technologies to enhance intelligence gathering, the search for new strategies and new partners and approaches to partnerships will be key. And the fact that was said back when the world was going through, again, another awful moment in its time, I think we find ourselves in a similar situation, that there is no time for ease and comfort. It's a time to dare. And that's one of the things we want to say as we're going through this. And we're going to have a little bit of context for you in a minute as to why we would be saying this. But I think it's important to understand that things are happening and people are having momentum. And it's really important to say there is still opportunity. So where can we look for that opportunity? So the reason that Collinson has the view that we have is that we can give you a view. We're not saying we're the experts. We're not certainly saying that we know everything, but we're very, very blessed. We can give you a view because we have a lot of experience in a number of the areas that we're talking about. We have 30 years experience across the financial services sector in loyalty, also in assistance and other experience areas. We partner with over 1,400 FS and banking clients today. And with our client solutions, services, products, we touch about 400 million plus customers daily. So again, we are seeing a lot of clients, a lot of customers, and not every single one is doing exactly the same. So it gives us some insight into client ecosystems, partner ecosystems. And we're starting to see who's getting the most value out of this moment in time, and it's very accelerated. The one thing we're constantly seeing is that those who are daring to partner in a new way seem to be gaining the advantage. And we felt that that was a very interesting discussion for today. So for instance, Collinson has had to partner as well. When we look at how we have had to change in the last year in the world of travel experience for loyalty, we've had to redefine ourselves in a new way. Nothing that we decided to do, but was thrust upon us. And the fact that we dared to take that challenge, that we are now a travel experience organisation that provides duty of care as well as experiences, is again fascinating in its own journey. But I'll speak a little bit to that later. But just let you know that while we talk about potential experiences we've seen, we are also going through that moment of change. So dare, you're going to hear me use the word quite a bit. Obviously it's in the title. So when I say dare, it feels a little bit risque, or care abandon, but we're using this dare definition just to underline those who dare today will win tomorrow. What that means is that dare is a calculated risk assessment of changes to win long-term commercial success. And we believe that's by developing long-term valuable customer relationships. The ability to dare and to have an understanding as to what you do today means that you have a chance to get ahead, gain market share, while others are standing by dormant, almost paralyzed by indecision. The risk, the dare, is going out of your comfort zone, partnering with organizations that you may not be familiar with today, and to ultimately achieve a new value exchange that will bring added value you're searching for. And it might make me feel uncomfortable, and that is okay. Feeling uncomfortable is a positive thing. It's how you're aware of why you feel uncomfortable and where you can start to learn and push yourself to learn. And these are all things that we're seeing the companies that I mentioned beforehand that we work with that are starting to make big strides in their particular markets. So what we've seen is a number of key trends that have played through. We've seen digital behaviors, work from home, Zoom, acceleration of the gig economy with Deliveroo and everything else that goes along with that. So I'm sure a lot of you have been experiencing and really rather enjoying. We've seen an increased expectation on personalization. The more people are interacting with you, the more they expect a brand to know about them, and they expect you to be right, relevant, and at the right time. The demand for instant gratification, again, this is always on, but there's an insatiability that's happened in the last 10 months, and that instant gratification mode has been accelerated. The world shifted to conducting more activity online. Brands are fighting for attention, and again, it isn't just in your own industry, as we know. There will be so many people trying to get effectively the consumer's attention that it starts to become a very aggressive environment. The shift in domestic spend, loyalty programs, especially in the travel industry, but also from a lifestyle perspective, are seeing a massive increase. We had a recent example with a client that obviously I can't name, who had a program that had basically 2 years worth of redemptions in 3 weeks, sort of towards the beginning of the pandemic. And that again was behavior acceleration of domestic spend that no one had ever either seen or factored for. But again, what's the learning from that? What's the understanding? Is it that the program was too versatile, or was it that it was just very, very good and this has suddenly provided a real impetus for people to thoroughly engage? Again, it was a fascinating learning and fascinating seeing how the client developed out of that with the offer for the remainder of the year. The last point, sort of looking at the search for increased added value. Everyone expects something for nothing. Added value now is a given right, and a large amount of consumers just think of it as part of the service. So again, the ability to be able to be relevant, to not just give things away, but actually provide relevancy in what you're providing added value to, again, has much more impact and provides greater loyalty for tomorrow. And what's interesting on this last piece is new sources of entertainment and engagement. We've always seen that that's something that people are hunting for. But what's happening now is that people are now on different journeys, certainly than they're used to. I mean, I know from personal experience that I'm now doing and behaving and seeing things online on my journeys, whether I'm shopping or looking for entertainment or both, because you're now searching for new sources. If we look at Netflix, and if I think of all of the channels that I'm basically subscribed to now, you start to realize that there are very different spaces that I was going to that brands can reach me and loyalty programs can reach me than I was effectively 12 months ago. That wouldn't have happened unless the pandemic came about. I think it would have happened at some stage, but it wouldn't have happened as quickly, and it wouldn't have had accelerated behaviors such as we've seen now. So there's a lot of trends. There's a lot of people giving information about how things are developing. We want to just say that because it's developed so quickly, I don't think anybody on their platform technology roadmaps are able to say, we saw this coming and we built for it. The only way we see behavior being capitalized on, an understanding of digital behavior, is if companies and brands aren't considering themselves as islands. We need to acknowledge challenging times. The shifting landscapes have been so accelerated that you can't possibly do this on your own. There are amazing partners out there with the right mental approach to partnership that can create good value for both sides of the dynamics. We'll talk more about this, but the best thing to look at here is the fact that a large amount of brands are realizing this quite quickly through necessity, through maybe that was originally the way they were working. But other brands are coming in and realizing that they actually can find an interesting place to play with other partners that they might have thought was a closed barrier to themselves but prior to this. So that brings me on to this knowledge of daring. Dare to address existing barriers. We've got, in response to the shifting landscapes, financial institutions need to probably readdress, in our view, their current mindset barriers with regards to three specific areas: open banking, partnerships, and then the customer centricity that works through both of those. All of this will have an effect on your customers, and I think in turn achieve deeper loyalty engagement, which obviously will positively impact your bottom line. And this is ultimately what we want to try and drive out of this. A large amount of people are not being catered for as the pandemic's going through. There's still a large amount of consumer groups who aren't fully being engaged through what we would call this customer centricity point. But people will start to fill those gaps if we don't or you don't. So if we move on to open banking. Open banking is fast becoming an obligation for FS, certainly across Asian markets, which are playing catch up to North America and Europe, I'm dare to say. So where it's already the law of the land, here we're starting to see quite a nice acceleration happening, but all at once in every market. The reality of the pandemic has forced sweeping changes within a compressed time frame, as I've mentioned before, for organisations in APAC, despite concerns around privacy, cybersecurity, commercial and commercial use. All of these things are starting to create, I think, momentum, and open banking practiced by allowing any third party such as fintech, e-commerce platform, merchant to open access to consumer banking transactions starts to really change the game. And I think this is where loyalty programs, partners that used to be merchants, partners that used to be providers, are now starting to be perceived as competition. So that's a little bit more on open banking. In a recent survey of about 300 APAC fintech and financial professionals, despite 70% of them acknowledging that open banking is their future, only 20% of them believe that it will be their bank, and it will put their bank in a winning position. In fact, the majority believe fintechs and consumer-facing companies will be the biggest winners of open banking. To be able to say that now and understand that now, and not be able to potentially react or understand a way forward, possibly because of the systemic ways people have approached working in the industry, is quite shocking. And I think, is it because of an institution and a culture, or an industry and a culture, or is it because there are real barriers? And I think those are the questions that we would be asking a lot of this audience to ask themselves. Is it because you've never done it before, or is it because something genuinely is stopping you? The reality is that through open banking, financial services institutions can gain a much broader understanding of existing customers' behaviours, habits, interests, social profiles. There's a broad array of data that can start to be built up, and all of this is incredibly useful data for CRM, marketing, product development, credit score analysis, for instance. But with regards to loyalty, experiences, and offerings specifically, open banking enables the ability to integrate with appropriate partners in much more meaningful and seamless ways. And this is irrelevant to the loyalty space. We see open banking providing a real moment of opportunity for everybody. But again, this idea to be able to dare, to embrace, to partner, to share is one of the areas that we are seeing some accelerating due to what's happening with the pandemic, and others stepping back, wanting to have a look, waiting for others to do. So to readdress the existing barriers, we now look at partnerships. So enabled by open banking, partnerships, as I mentioned, can in turn be reimagined. competitors become partners. Partners become a commercial revenue stream. The highest value of the relationship may not be the thing you are trading with the partner. It could just be the data you and they share and understand. Traditionally in FS loyalty, partners conversely have been merchants, suppliers of a product, service or experience, only involved in transactional exchanges that were really just earning and burning points. So within a conditional loyalty program construct, that has been very, very narrow. They may have been a benefit provider, only accessed by tier or status. But moving forward, for me, I think we've seen that these are, those that are daring to form symbiotic partnerships that can leverage more out of both sides of the business with existing and new players, and has accelerated this type of behavior and attitude through the pandemic to a much greater game. One of the things that I would say is that partnerships' aim is to share intelligence that builds a clearer picture of your consumers to enable customer experiences to be enhanced through greater personalization. The more data you have, the more understanding of the journeys they're taking that aren't necessarily through your ecosystem, they're much more valuable and personalized you can make your content. But also while enabling your brand to access potential new audiences, and due to the sharing customer data, understand where existing customers might be in other areas you never thought you were going to be able to contact them. This ability to share data, the ability to understand how loyalty data can help, is something that I think we see the flexible businesses starting to really open up and starting to not just eat away at the edges, but actually start to make some fairly strong plays and responses into the industry. So, as we've highlighted, consumer appetite has changed. It's increased. I think what's interesting is, sorry, I'm just going to go back a slide. I think what's interesting is that businesses that were already providing quite disruptive services are now seeing the greater opportunity to engage with your customers and with their customers. So rather than seeing these guys as disruptors, as competitors, how can you see them as brand multipliers and partners of shared journeys? That is where the opportunity is. There are brands out there that, yes, might be coming and playing to this space, but will be looking to amplify what they're doing with the right partner who can give opportunity for joint data journeys, joint customer-centric understanding. And these are all areas that I think that we are seeing but are being missed by so many. So now we've looked at partnerships, we're going to move forward onto the customer centricity. So keeping customer experience and loyalty front of mind, so many new and existing players in the marketplace, understanding your customers as deeply as possible is the race. This will enable you to meet the expectations of today, but as we mentioned, the title of this is retain their loyalty for tomorrow. And to achieve this, we believe, and we've seen proof of this, is combining FS and third-party data to understand customer needs and desires and across life stages, and understand the moments of needs in the future. There's quite a lot of the moments of looking for next week, of trying to understand right now what's needed. But if you've got your program reconfigured to what's been happening and it potentially be more flexible for domestic spend, you've suddenly found a way to, I would imagine, now start to look ahead. And that's the bit that I think is changing. People are now starting to predict where customers will be in 4 months and 6 months and 8 months, and starting to get a much clearer understanding of where they can appear and help and support customers, for instance, as we are in the return to travel space with loyalty programs. So if you are still looking at what's happening next week or next month, and you're not understanding potentially where your customer will be over the next 12 months and their desires and needs, I think that's something you would probably need to look at. And if you don't have enough understanding of that, who can you partner with to be in a better position? Because really what you want to offer is contextually relevant FS products, FS advisory and value add offerings, but that's going to be in line with lifestyles and needs and hopes and wants. And there is a way to get that now. There's a way to get that and understand where you effectively will be. So the importance of value adding service increasing in the future. So linked to this, the recent World Banking Report 2021 anticipates an increasing requirement to focus on hyper-personalized recommendations of core banking products. So what does this actually mean? All sounds very interesting. Organizations basically need to develop next generation value-added services and opportunities. They need to go beyond the traditional and integrate areas such as retail and e-commerce, travel and tourism, mobility, hospitality, entertainment and gaming. By doing all of this, you will further enhance your customers' experience of your brand, but by providing relevant life solutions that really resonate. You can see here the light blue is effectively the core banking products, the traditional ones. Those will be getting smaller or certainly more focused, but they need to be more hyper-personalized. The dark navy are effectively the new services and products that are sort of flooding in, again, going into this potentially this open banking in play. And you start to realize that what you've done today has to be much more targeted and focused, relevant, hyper-personalized tomorrow, because it's needing to make way for much more interesting, much more exciting services and products. Be able to understand that switch and change, I think, is something that is about customer centricity, isn't necessarily just about understanding financial services. So suddenly customer centric experienced leaders, brands and companies that understand this will be coming out to the front and again, winning. So we thought it'd be interesting just to sort of towards the end start to look at a really interesting example, a great example of a symbiotic partnership that we've been talking about through open banking with this customer centricity at its heart is the relationship between Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group and Grab. The partnership enabled the brands to both reach new customers with FS solutions, explore quite innovative ways to develop new products and services based on deeper understanding of their target audience. The partnership, it came about by MUFG being really impressed by Grab. Grab's reach and base, if you're not through, is 185 million, for instance, app downloads. The Grab's data accumulation, which is data accumulated daily across Ride, is really, really impressive. And again, when you start to look at the ride sharing, shopping and tourism, it really does start to take people on literally different journeys that you start to realize you never get access to in a traditional way. Grab's use of AI, for instance, across big data, recommending services to users, predicting traffic congestion and demonstrating ability to advance anti-cyber crime measures. All of this allowed MUFG to play in a very different space through partnering, but actually adding value through understanding customer centricity that was relevant to those customers. So again, if you haven't seen that, have a little bit more of a look, but we felt that that was a really interesting example of some very learned symbiotic partnerships really taking off and starting to make a play that you may not have been that familiar with. So our recent learnings. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have also gone on a journey. We've also experienced a lot of what we were saying other companies are looking to do. And looking at Collinson, as an organisation whose DNA is rooted in the travel industry, 30 plus years of doing this around the world, we also had to learn. We had to adapt and partnering to initially try and stay relevant. But then what happened for us is ultimately leading the safe return to travel alongside lots and lots of new partners really allowed us to start to find a purpose and really realize that we were turning into one of the perfect middle person, recognizing that COVID wasn't going to end anytime soon, and that also as the number 2 player in the world that provide in the world that provides assistance, and being the leading global player in loyalty and travel experiences, it was unique that we could probably position ourselves to ensure that it's not just about travel experiences, but we're now providing a duty of care, a level of assistance on those travel experiences during the pandemic. It's not just for an individual consumer either, but also for small, medium and large businesses. So we started to understand that the core product we had, by partnering, enabled us to provide something that was enhanced, was innovative, that was of the moment, and it put us at the forefront of so many conversations with so many partners that has meant we've been able to grow a business through our lounge technology and innovation partnerships that we've got going on there. We partner with airlines, airports and brands to provide COVID testing solutions globally, and have helped organisations that were impacted by COVID remain front of mind and continue to have meaningful, timely interactions with their customers through an implementation of earn and redeem rewards platforms. So Collinson is now actually the leading private sector testing provider in the UK, with over 200,000 COVID tests conducted globally. And we're rolling that out now in each of the regions. This is something we never thought we would do. And it's not because Collinson has done this, it's because we've partnered with the right people, we've learnt, enabled, and suddenly realised we're the only ones doing this, or certainly we're at the beginning. This now has suddenly given us, as part of our DNA, as I mentioned at the beginning, this reinvigorated entrepreneurialism that originally set this company up and is still true today. And actually, it brought the best out of us. So we're now finding different revenue streams that are so not where we thought we would be, but honestly, also quite fun. And the partnerships we've got are the things that have really enabled us to provide innovation and lead. So I hope you found that helpful. To round off, look, we've collectively found ourselves in these uncharted waters due to COVID. I think if we want to remain relevant and we want to try and find a way to get market share and grow, we need to look at customers' lives today and in the future in a daring way to partner. And again, in a way that we think will enable customers to understand that we're trying and that we're journeying and that we are not just sticking to our own lanes, and that by understanding their world outside of what you might know, and as brands and as business people feeling uncomfortable about these partnerships, you're going to be able to win tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you found that helpful. Thank you very much if you're still here listening to me going through this journey, and I look forward to any Q&As you might have. Thank you very much.